Good morning, everyone. I have woken up Bill Cohen very early on the West Coast, but I'm so glad he is with us. Bill is with the Cohen. Yes, exactly. It's okay. I have my coffee with me too, always, Bill. Bill is with the Cohen Caregiving Support Consultants. He's very smart to have branding right with him because I haven't had enough coffee, obviously. But we were just talking offline, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation this morning. It's an important conversation, and you do important work. Bill is lost his mother, Sheila, in Hurricane Katrina. And you're right, you needed to remind me what year that was, but Katrina hit in 2005. It was devastating. It was all over the news, but I think when things like that happen, unless you're directly affected by it, it becomes one of those news stories. I think sometimes I get frustrated because we're watchers of news, not what I like to call the doers. And I know that at the time we in the nation were called out to help, and many people did. There's no question people did. But when you are so directly affected, and you were at the time, your mother's health went dramatically downhill. Alzheimer's and dementia set in, and you weren't just a son, you were her caregiver. And I believe that as we grow older as children, we're often in that situation, whether our parents allow it, want it, or it's just out of necessity. I have one of my closest friends right now is very much in that situation and finds herself in a rock and a hard place at times between her father, who wants to also be a caregiver, but it's not so easy, and her mother, who's not in the position to really care for herself anymore. So you've really devoted yourself to that. Tell me a little bit, what were you doing before that? Was there, what was your life before Katrina?
So I have been living in Portland, Oregon for over 30 years. My last major career was working for our state agency. And that's what I was doing full time when we started seeing the first signs of Mom. We weren't sure what was going on, but she wasn't taking care of the house. She wasn't taking care of the finances. She was showing confusion and anxiety, well, more than she used to. And we knew that something was wrong, but weren't sure because she was also in the caregiving role for my late stepfather. He had all kinds of issues. And we wondered, well, let's see if he ends up in a care community or if he passes away because he was on hospice, would she bounce back? Well, we never got that opportunity because Hurricane Katrina happened. And fortunately, she was safe. She evacuated. She was on the East Coast with a couple other family members. I started doing the long distance caregiving thing because I'd gone to the doctor with her and I knew that something was wrong. But needless to say, a home that she expected fully to come back to, the trauma just exacerbated and accelerated her increasing condition. And I started making trips back there, but I also started attending a support group and started talking to a care community here in Southwest Portland. And after she was with a couple other family members, first in North Carolina and then Delray Beach, Florida, her sister, we moved her out here. And less than a year in assisted and then 4 years in memory care. And she passed away at 83 and 8 years ago. And most people, when they're done with caregiving, they say, okay, I've done my thing. I'm washing my hands. I'm out of here. I kept going to that support group and I became the facilitator. And I got involved with the Walk to End Alzheimer's and other fundraising, advocacy, etc., whatever. I thought I was going to do more of that when I retired from the state, but I came across this concept of a caregiving support consultant. And basically what I did was I turned my personal loss, my pain, into my passion. And I love the term encore career.
I do too. I love that because I've seen a few people and who I laugh when they put on LinkedIn. I've retired and now I'm doing this, and I think, thank God they're at that next stage, or because sometimes that next stage is really the passionate
Mhm.
um, and the making a difference. And I think that's really you made such a quality and care life for your mother, but now that's what you're really doing for others.
Mhm.
I think it's always important to establish this. There's Alzheimer's that has certain um, features to that disease, but also dementia.
Mhm.
um, there's aspects of Parkinson's that
Mhm.
enter into dementia. Can you make a little, I know, not being too medical, but a little bit of a distinction that people, because sometimes people say, my parents are starting to lose it. They're losing their dots,
Mhm.
and I think that we all, as my parents get older, we're like, we all say we're noticing things.
Right. So I think right at the top of the FAQs,
Mhm.
either when you read anything or when I talk to groups, is that dementia, like cancer in general, is the umbrella term. There are many kinds of
Mhm.
cancers. There's over 100 types of dementia,
Mhm.
actually. But the most prevalent ones are some of the ones you mentioned: Alzheimer's, dementia with Lewy body, and then sometimes is associated with Parkinson's, like you said, but also vascular, frontal temporal, et cetera. Alzheimer's, unfortunately, is the most prevalent. It's the most expensive. There's no cure or treatment. It's the sixth leading cause of death in this country, including the only one in the top 10 that has no cure or treatment. Fortunately, we are getting closer. We're getting better understanding why it's happening, how to prevent it, how to diagnose it. And it'll probably end up being not so much a silver bullet magic pill, but some combination of medication and lifestyle. And actually, my mom was like a poster child. I'm not, without the details, nobody else in the family has Alzheimer's. She
Okay.
was in her early 70s when she started showing symptoms. So that's not very old. So it's not just
No, no,
age
no,
and
no. Yeah.
genetics, but it's increasingly evidence that it's lifestyle, behavioral choices, and your environment. And she's definitely was part of it. And one thing was she was a professional artist, a printmaker. She was etching into metal plates and putting it into an acid bath. Maybe
Mm.
be butchering the name. It's intaglio printmaking. And we think that exposure may have been one of the biggest reasons, besides living in a toxic, polluted area, and she used to smoke, didn't exercise, that type of thing. So, yeah. So it's not necessarily preventable, but you can lower your risk factors. Yeah.
I think that's interesting. That's so interesting in itself. And from a study standpoint, of course, that's some of the things I know that they look at. I mean, we say this all the time, is that where's the magic cure for that? Where's the magic cure for so many? And thank God there are studies going on and good researchers, which is why it's so important to, when you have a few extra dollars, to give to, to support groups, to give to causes that I always like to say that are doing research. You don't have to say it. I'll do my mantra of that. I always watch where money goes, and I don't like to pay executives salaries. I like to make sure the money is always going towards research, because I think, those are some of the best dollars spent, and locally to support, programming.
And
Um,
fortunately, the amount of funding coming from the government is growing exponentially, because the Congress actually is noticing that there's a huge problem here. It's an explosion in costs, and so many people, especially as the baby boomers are getting older, moving into those years, we baby boomers. And
Well, I mean, we say it all the time. I mean, we talk about trying to live a healthier lifestyle. Now, when you throw that out there constantly and you do that, we're going to live longer. I mean, to me, I think about your mother at 83. My father's turning 84 on Friday. To me, I think like that's young. I want to think that's young,
And
you
it can
know,
be.
because
And it can
yeah,
be. I mean, we can have long quality aging and into our 80s and 90s. It doesn't mean you're going to end up in the proverbial nursing home.
mm-hmm.
There's so many more, and there's so many more options nowadays, which is what I help people with in the home and outside than there used to be, because it used to be the nursing home and be cared for by extended family, multi-generational at home, but there's so many more options nowadays. So that's just one part of the journey, one part of the puzzle.
I often hear, and I don't know how you feel about this. There are often stories about, well, if you do this, if you eat this, it will slow down things for dementia. Like last week there was a story on the Today Show. I always sort of wake up and it said, if you sleep longer, it will help with, dementia. And I thought, well, if you sleep longer, it's just in general better for you. And I'm the world's worst sleeper. And I looked at my husband, I go, oh, if I sleep longer. And I said, I'm going back to sleep, like, and I thought to myself, who are we kidding? If you just sleep, sleep's good for you. But when you hear something like that, I mean, is this real? Is this somebody did one little study?
You're right on target there. There is some of that they're taking small studies that weren't as large or as blind, double blind, and things like that as it should be. There's a lot of claims out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
Mm-hmm.
But there is increasing evidence that by keeping socially active, mentally active, physically active, having a good balanced diet, something like the Mediterranean diet. Okay. I kiddingly say I'm mostly organic, modified Mediterranean omnivore, but that's a whole other story. But
well, no, I've heard that. It's interesting that you say that, because I as a publicist, I did a lot of work with plant-based clients, and that was one of the things we talked a lot about. How great it is from that standpoint.
Yeah, eat more plants and less of it, and smaller portions and things like that. I mean, think about our recent what we're dealing with the pandemic. If people were healthier overall, we wouldn't have as much of a problem the past year and a half, would we? So yeah, it's other things like you mentioned: sleep, keep your blood pressure down, quit smoking, cut the alcohol. It's like that acronym CRAP. The carbonated colas, added sugar, processed foods, things like that. The bad fats, the bad carbs, because there are, good fats. We all know that, the avocado, seeds, nuts, and fish, and things like that. So yeah, a lot of it is common sense and getting away from all that junk food and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that, the truth is, I think that makes sense overall, but I think that that's such a great message at a younger age to take into longevity, which is really, part of what you deal with. Tell me, and it's rare that I ask this, so when I do, I really mean it truly. Tell me, on a day-to-day, what is your typical day? I could ask everybody that, and I really don't. So so because I'm curious, who are your clients, and who you're dealing with, because I want people to reach out to you. So not everybody will be a fit, and so I'm curious who should be reaching out to you.
So when you ask about a typical day, it's a combination of clients, my volunteer work, including support groups and a memory cafe, and networking, of course, just getting out and meeting people, having fun, whether it's my local chamber or small networking groups. I'm actually a member of the eWomen network, which is international, which you probably have heard of. I'm called an email because the vast majority of the caregivers and the care recipients and the professionals are women. That's my market. That's my niche. So with the clients, typically, although I've had clients anywhere from their 20s for a parent who has early onset to people in their 80s for their spouses or an older sibling. But the majority are 35 to 65 adult children, primarily women, because the vast majority, again, about 2/3 of the caregivers are women, although men have stepped up. Used to be more like 1 out of 5. Now it's more like 1 out of 3
Mhm.
are the caregivers as well. And I see that in my clients and my groups. And they're seeing those first signs with their parents or their other
Mhm.
family member or somebody else they're caring about. And confusion or memory loss, or, oh, there's suddenly dents in the car. What's going on here? Or the recipe doesn't taste quite the same. Or, and it's not so much that it's almost a cliche by now, but about the keys, I can't find my keys. Okay. Well, we all do that sometimes because we're stressed and we're running around. We don't put it in the same place. As was pointed out by the author of Still Alice, Lisa Genova, it's
Mhm.
not a matter of where you put the keys. Do you remember what the keys are for? So that's a good rule to keep in mind.
Okay, that makes me feel better, Bill, because yesterday I lost my glasses and this morning I lost my keys.
Yeah, there you go.
And I know what both are for. But I said to my husband, I go, what is wrong with me that I don't usually lose things?
I'll say the same thing to you that I say to caregivers. Breathe, take a deep breath, where we left, all that. Yeah, you'll be fine.
My husband looked at me, he goes, you're too busy. You're just doing things too fast. And I was like,
yeah.
But that's an interest. I guess I would ask this question then. How do you approach that with your parents?
Yeah.
What's the I have
that's a tough call.
My parents don't listen, so and everybody else listening, but I have two very dynamic,
right.
Yeah, they're driving right now. We have a fun family wedding, so I know they're in the car anyway, but they have two very different personalities anyway, but and which I would say a lot of people probably have that with parents, that's sometimes how parents attract, or couples attract. But you often could have a parent who takes in the information or wants the help, and one that's going to fight that.
Right. And we haven't even talked about the rest of the family if they're on the same page.
Oh yeah, well,
no, they're fine. They're just getting a little older, and they're tired and what have you. They'll be fine.
Well, you've got that and family who says you deal with it.
Exactly.
I'm good with whatever so it all falls. Yeah, I mean,
I can say from my own thing, like what I like to say is that if you would ask me 15, 16 years ago, what the path that I was going to go on that we talked about earlier, and end up sitting here talking to you today and doing what I do, I say you're crazy. You couldn't make up that scenario. And the resources and knowing who to turn to were very scarce back then.
Sure.
And even now there's a lot more information about how do you know who to work with. So with that in mind, when I first saw those signs with my mom, I started doing some research and finding out, but it was basically the old let your fingers through the yellow pages for information, and in my case, it wasn't so much my stepfather, but my mom, she wasn't really in denial. I think I was more in denial than anybody because, it can't be anything like Alzheimer's, what have you. Why would I jump to that conclusion? But I was fortunate that she kind of went along with things, that giving me power of attorney and the advance directive, putting me on the checking account, that type of thing. And my family had a lot of opinions, but they were all in my mom's best interest. And but they also knew my name was on the paper. I had the final say. Too many other families are adversarial. They're not on the same page, et cetera, including the parents. And I see this a lot in the support groups and my clients that, dad's trying to take care of mom, and we're fine. We've lived here all, 40, 50 years, and we'll take care of each other, butt out, none of your business. But they really can't,
No.
And then you've got, again, other family members who have all kinds of opinions about, oh, should they stay at home? Should we bring in care? Should we be looking at other housing? And to not only get the parents on the same page, but get the rest of the family can be a challenge. When I see a family that maybe all the siblings are agreeing, but maybe the parents aren't, but I say the fact that you're talking among each other and coming up with a plan or looking for some advice, resources, and referral support, which is what I do, I say, bravo, good for you, because you're ahead of the game right there. It's when you're fighting amongst each other and can't admit that we have a problem here and we need to deal with it. And I always tell people, be proactive, plan, prepare. You don't want to have to react in a crisis, like a stroke or a broken hip, something like that. Then you're reacting emotionally and you have fewer options at your disposal. And so that's where I come in. There are people who do like housing and elder law and in-home care, all the other factors, but I'm like a coordinator. I'm a guide, a concierge of sorts. Are you familiar with the term wraparound from social work?
Sure.
For the kids?
Sure.
That's the approach that I try to take. And very few people are doing that because they're in their own part of the journey, but they're not communicating. And so I try to put together the team to help them. And
Bill, do you only do this in your area, or are you accessible to people in other parts of the country?
yes.
Okay.
Both.
Well, and I think
I
I know
help people all over. Yes.
And I know you and I are you're out west and I'm in Michigan, but I love I love so much what you're saying, and that's why I'm excited to bring this information out, because I'm 55, and my parents are getting older, and I have found, quite frankly, like, this is hard sometimes for me as the baby of the family to wrap my head around. I get to be I'm a mom of 3, but then I turn into the baby. And my sister and I talk about these things. So I think I think what you just said is it's important. You have the conversation. You and your siblings get on the same page, because if your parents live a very happy, healthy life and never need your services, and great.
That's
But fabulous. If we never have to call you, fabulous too.
Right.
But to start conversations early, I think are always important, and to know what resources are out there, because you just said something so important. You don't want to also be in the situation of, oh my God, who do we call? What do we do? Where do we go?
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a flood in your house and having no idea where the plumber's phone number is. I mean, truly, like, when you're in a crisis, you don't know who to call, even when the phone number is right there. Your reaction.
Yep. So to answer more specifically, yes, I may be in the Pacific Northwest, but I've helped people all over the country, and it can be either the caregiver is here and their loved one is on the East Coast or in the Midwest, or vice versa. It works both ways. In fact, I have referred a couple of people to somebody who is a certified senior advisor like myself and a housing advisor in your area, who I connected with through LinkedIn, or I found them through the CSA directory, things like that. So even if I don't know somebody now, I can find the resources, and I know who to look for or who to ask. Oh, who do you know who's a good elder law attorney in your area? So I did that recently for a woman who's here in Oregon. Most of her family's in the Miami area, and it's due to mom and the aunt and the 2 siblings are involved. And then we're having a team Zoom meeting all on the behalf of mom and finding them resources there in South Florida. So yeah.
And I think that you just said it, that our life now is going to go back to a lot more normalcy of seeing people, but the truth of the matter is we're not always going to do that. We do have to take care of people who are not in, my parents don't live here. A lot of parents have other homes, or you have to move them around, and the fact that we have brought Zoom, I mean, I've used Zoom forever, but the fact that more and more people have brought Zoom into their worlds will make things easier in conversation. I tell everybody it's in my link today, but caregivingsupport.com. Please, look up more information about Bill. As you can see, caring, giving are absolutely your mantra. I feel it across the screen. I say that I'm sorry it took a hurricane. I'm not surprised you took care of your mother. I think you would have taken care of your mother anyway, but the fact that you're now taking care of so many, I think just became the calling that you were supposed to be doing.
It doesn't feel like work.
I feel that.
Doesn't feel
No,
like
I can see that. I don't know you, and now I know you, and I feel that. And I'm so blessed today to have this time that we got to talk. I want you to come back and feel free to go back on my link and check back in with me, in a month or two, and let me know what things are going on. Remind me, Alzheimer Awareness Month, September, maybe?
I think November, if I'm not mistaken.
November. Okay. So
do different things. There's a caregiving month. There's all sorts of work.
Yeah. So
to me, it's all year round. So
I know. And so
especially for the walk.
That's the silly publicist in me that has to bring those out to the media. But
I'm always purple.
you're always purple and always making sure people are raising money towards research. And I'll say that because it's important. I tell people you don't have to say that. That's my sales pitch, because that's important. But that people across my platform can help with. I want you to come back in and check in with me, and let's do that.
Enjoy that. It would be wonderful. Yeah. So, can I do
all
one?
Right, well, we're Facebook friends now too. So share things.
And speaking of Facebook, I'd like to put in one little plug is that
if
somebody's interested in seeing how it works is I do have a group, dementia support group for caregivers with Bill Cohen. It's a community of getting up close to 600 on 6 different continents. I haven't found anybody in Antarctica yet. And what's neat is that it's a very supportive group of people that help each other. I don't even have to do all the posting. A lot of them will do it themselves, or they'll respond to other people's. I'm dealing with this issue. How do I handle that, manage that care? I mean, I will too, because that's what I do. But the caregivers themselves do it. It's heartwarming and gratifying.
Mm-hmm. That's when I love that social media is so helpful.
It can.
That's when it can be really helpful. That's the good posting.
Absolutely.
So we'll definitely come back and check in with me. And
I would love that.
Have a great day.
Okay.
I wouldn't say go back to sleep. I know you won't, but thank you for getting up so
early.
early.
I have to have breakfast yet.
I know. We'll have some more coffee.
I would.
All right. Thank you. Bye.